The keynote address will be delivered by my friend and colleague, Mr. Otto Orondaam, social entrepreneur and educator. So I'd like to now give the floor to Mr. Orondaam for his presentation.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we are gathered here to discuss the wealth of our nations, our children. As of today, November 15th, our world's population just hits 8 billion, and that's a historic milestone to which we are all witnesses. This is also a success story for every one of us here, because it shows that our world today, we now have fewer maternal and infant mortality, longer life expectancies, enhanced literacy, and better healthcare systems. Projections by the United Nations shows that the world's population will reach 10 billion people in 30 years. And about 95% of this growth will take place in low and medium income countries. Now, let me take you back to my home, my continent, Africa. Africa will account for 75% of this growth, and that's about 1.4 billion people. And my country, Nigeria, will be the third most populous country in the world with about 400 million people. Today, Africa has about 1.2 billion people, and this means that our population, specifically that of sub-Saharan Africa, will double, accounting for 99% of this increase. Over 60% of Africa's population is under 25 years, making Africa the world's youngest continent. And in 7 years, children in Africa will constitute almost 50% of children globally. Why is all this data important? Because with population growth, the majority and over 70% of these people will live in low-income communities and what we call urban slums. And while this is a great opportunity, it could also be a huge threat if we fail to maximize the window of opportunity that we have. That is Makoko, a community in Lagos. And on the right, you have Kibera, another community in Nairobi, Kenya. I was there 2 weeks ago, and in Makoko 3 days ago. But that was not my first time visiting Makoko. As a young graduate 11 years ago, I visited that community for the very first time. And I saw firsthand children between the ages of 3, 4, 5 to 15 years old who had never been to school. Boys were expected to grow up to become fishermen, and girls were expected to grow up to become housewives and traders. I walked out of that community that day in October with a commitment, knowing that those children needed to go to school. I rallied my friends, and eventually I had to quit my job at the bank because I realized that it was not just a job to get those children in school, but my life's calling. And after I did that, in 3 months, we raised funds from peer to peer, friends to friends, communities to communities. And for the very first time, we got 114 children in that community enrolled into school. That number grew from 114 to 500. And today we have worked with close to 20,000 volunteers and over 300 organizations locally and internationally, and our impact has reached over 625,000 children across the country of Nigeria. The theme of our session today is inclusion, quality, and well-being. And we all know that the world we live in today is hugely affected by several challenges of inequality, lack of inclusion, and poor healthcare systems, especially affecting children below the ages of 10, with huge learning poverty as we have seen it in several reports. When the world was affected with COVID-19, children in low-income communities, in slums, were hugely affected. And we came together again as young people and built what was the first virtual learning classroom in Africa and got thousands of children to learn. We provided digital devices to hundreds of children, and it was a huge success. And we got organizations like Microsoft who came on board and gave us 1 million licenses for free. and UNICEF, who joined us to scale this program to over 500,000 children, because we knew that education for the most underserved children was very important. Over the next few days, and we're going to be working on the Tashkent Declaration, and in closing, I would like to share 3 important factors to ensure that the Tashkent Declaration, it's not just a policy on paper, but a living document that will be a success across communities. Number 1, we must be very intentional about collaboration. As we begin this conference today, let's remember the 17th Sustainable Development Goal. The second is important that we are very intentional about innovations. We went on as an organization and built dozens of early childhood classrooms in underserved communities and got children from these communities to learn because we knew that it was important. We also got cluster learning communities of learning in the communities because we knew that education must not always and also happen in the 4 walls of a classroom. And we got thousands of children learning within their communities. We had volunteers from various parts of the world, various parts of our communities, and various parts of the continent join us to scale this program. So innovation is very important. Thirdly, investment. For every child between 0 to 5 years who is early educated, data tells us that the return on investment to GDP is about 13%. So why wouldn't we invest and ensure that every child has access to early childhood education and quality education? As data has shown us, young people in Africa will play a very critical role in the future, in our future. And if we invest early in their education, we're investing in building a global community of human capital that will improve the global economy. We have this window of opportunity before us, dear delegates. We need to maximize it. We need to maximize the demographic dividends that we have presented today. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Otto, for your excellent presentation and reminding us about the need to integrate quality and inclusion, while at the same time we expand access to services. And clearly a holistic approach to early learning helps ensure that children are not just learning, but thriving, with critical soft skills and the full range of competencies being developed.